Hello everyone, welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. It's Friday, August 7th. We have made it to the end of another week, the end of the first week in August of 2020. If you follow me on Twitter, _Stephanie Haney, if you're not already there, you know every once in a while I like to share a thought. Here's the thought that popped into my head today, so I want to share it all with you as we look to the weekend. Everything starts out simple until we make it complicated, which we are very good at doing. So I just want to wish you all a very simple, uncomplicated weekend as we look to Friday and then look to the weekend coming up. And here's the stories we're going to be getting into for you today to get you prepared for your Friday, prepared for your weekend. Actually, this first one that we're starting with is not simple at all. It's very complicated. Governor Mike DeWine, thankfully, has tested negative for COVID-19 after testing positive for it earlier in the day yesterday. We'll break down the back and forth on that with you. Also, we'll let you know what to expect from Governor Mike DeWine's press conference today. He will be holding one today. The regularly scheduled press conference was canceled yesterday because President Donald Trump was in Ohio, even though DeWine ended up having an impromptu press conference anyway after the initial COVID-19 positive test. Then we'll let you know what you need to do if you got a letter from the IRS. Yes, it is real, but there is an interesting looking letter that's coming out to the IRS, and 1 in 3 of you are getting it. So there's a good chance you might need to know this information. And if you've been following the Cleveland Browns on social media, you've seen that they've been showing off the new uniforms in photos of the players. We're going to talk about those new uniforms and also what people are saying about that with our 3 News sports analyst Ben Axelrod, who will be joining us. We're also going to talk about how many of the Browns have opted out, because yesterday was the deadline to do that if they wanted to opt out under the agreement between the NFL and the NFL's Players Association for the 2020 season. So he'll tell us where we stand on that. And then we're going to look at the fact that apparently when it comes to online learning, not every day is PAJAMAS day. There's a school district, not in Ohio, but in one of our neighbors not very far from here, that is banning pajamas from virtual classes. So we will talk about that. And then we're going to look at tax-free weekend here in Ohio. We're right in the middle of the sales tax holiday. We want to know what you are buying on your tax-free weekend. So we'll tell you how you can tell us that and maybe be on our 5 p.m. show on What's New. Okay, let's get into it. Governor Mike DeWine has now tested negative for COVID-19. This was hours after he tested positive for COVID-19. So here's what happened to backtrack a little bit. Governor Mike DeWine was supposed to meet President Donald Trump here in Cleveland when he arrived yesterday, and everyone who's going to come in contact with the president has to take one of those rapid COVID-19 tests, which returns results in 15 minutes. Well, that test is a little bit different than the test we typically use here in the state of Ohio that takes longer for the results to come back. So in that initial test, DeWine tested positive. So he didn't meet with the president. He went back to Columbus. He went to his home in Cedarville. He was tested again in Columbus. And that test, which was actually ran twice, came back negative for COVID-19 both times. Governor Mike DeWine's wife, Fran, was also tested, and that came back negative for COVID-19, as well as DeWine's staff. It all came back negative for COVID-19. So here's what we know about the rapid test, which came back with that initial positive. It is faster, but it's a newer method that is not as common as the test that DeWine underwent in Columbus. DeWine said that they feel very confident in results from the test that he underwent in Columbus at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. The test that he did, the second test that he did in Columbus, is the same PCR test that has been used over 1.6 million times in Ohio hospitals and labs all over the state. Now, here's what DeWine said about the rapid test, which is an antigen test. So that tests for something a little bit different. The PCR tests, to get really sciencey on you here for a moment, it tests for the specific RNA that makes up what causes COVID-19. The rapid test tests for something a little bit different. It tests for antigens. Now, DeWine says it's an exciting new technology, has the potential to reduce cost and improve turnaround time for COVID-19 testing, but they're still new and we don't have a lot of experience with the rapid tests here in Ohio. He did say that they will be in conversation with the manufacturer to try and get to the bottom of why those two tests returned different results. And out of an abundance of caution, DeWine and his wife Fran will be tested again on Saturday to make sure that neither of them actually have the virus. So right now, Governor Mike DeWine has tested negative for COVID-19. Now, we will be hearing from him today in a press conference, and what we can expect to hear Partially based on what happened yesterday, we can expect to hear about COVID-19 testing and also about the state of sports here in the state of Ohio. The question of the false positive has raised a lot of questions of the effectiveness of rapid testing moving forward, and there have been calls for rapid testing here in Ohio, so that will definitely probably be a topic of discussion in today's press conference. Also, many athletes, especially at the high school level, are wondering about the viability of a fall sports season. Now, currently, the state is requiring COVID-19 testing for every athlete prior to every competition, within 3 days of every competition. The Ohio High School Athletic Association has been asking the Ohio Department of Health to review that policy. We expect to hear maybe a little bit more about what will happen with fall sports here. Now, under the current orders from the Ohio Department of Health, there are no fans permitted at contact sports. That includes Cleveland Browns games, that includes Cincinnati Bengals games, that includes Ohio State University football games. And Lieutenant Governor Houston has said that both the Browns and the Bengals have submitted proposals to potentially be allowed to have fans in the stands this season. So we may hear some more about that today. On Tuesday was when Governor Mike DeWine unveiled that order that students K through 12 will all have to wear masks if they go back to in-person learning. We may hear a little bit more about what will happen with the schooling situation in general, just beyond sports today as well. Now, if you got a letter from the IRS, you might be wondering if it's real. Yes, it is real. 1 in 3 people are going to be getting a letter from the IRS if you haven't already gotten it. This is part of the IRS Identity Theft Program, and they select 1 in 3 people randomly to ask them to prove their identity. Now, this is something that you're probably not used to getting from the IRS, and people are saying it doesn't actually look real. They say the letter itself looks a little bit amateur. So, because of that, it's also possible that there might be people who capitalize on that and might try and take advantage of you as well. So here's what to do if you get that letter. Experts are recommending just call the IRS. Don't call the number that's directly on the letter. Go to irs.gov, call them, and before you just give out your personal information to anyone. But do know that the IRS is actually doing this. This is part of their identity protection program, their identity theft program, and they are doing this to verify randomly the identity of people within their system. So it is real, it is legitimate, but be cautious and be careful. All right, now we're going to bring in our 3 News sports analyst, Ben Axelrod. We're going to talk about those new uniforms that the Cleveland Browns have been showing off on social media, and also the opt-outs for the upcoming 2020 NFL season, because that deadline was yesterday under the NFL and the NFL Players Association agreement. So we're going to bring in Ben Axelrod right now. Hi, Ben. Thanks for joining us on 3 News Now today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Stephanie.
You know, there was a lot of talk about these new uniforms when they came out, the new old uniforms, we'll call them, because people were saying, you know, maybe not that many differences, but now we're seeing them for the first time on the players. So what are you noticing about that?
Yeah, you know, they released the uniforms back in April, right around the NFL draft, and because of everything that was going on with the pandemic at the time and players being away, and they weren't really able to roll them out like you would traditionally roll out these uniforms. Usually you see the players modeling them and all that. Instead, they had to get some staffers who just kind of looked like NFL players or maybe had some previous football experience, get them to dress up in the uniforms, do dark visors so you couldn't see their face, and kind of get by doing that. But now that the players are back in Berea, now that they're in the team facility, they're able to dress them up and do their photo shoots that they would typically be doing around this time anyway. So now we're starting to get our first look at these players in the Browns' new uniforms that are different from the ones that they were wearing from 2015 through 2019, which were kind of a more drastic departure from the Browns team history. These ones are a little more classic, or really a lot more classic compared to the more modern ones they were wearing for the last 5 years. So, yeah, I mean, they're getting good reviews on social media. I think a lot of fans are just kind of excited to finally see Baker Mayfield and Jarvis Landry and Myles Garrett finally wearing these new threads.
There is definitely something about seeing the players suited up. It makes you feel like maybe we will have a football season. Maybe we will get there.
Yeah, we'll see here. They're still, kind of in the part where they're going through testing and they're getting reacclimated to football. They're not even going to be practicing in pads for more than 2 more weeks, which you think about this time of year, usually they're in pads by now. So slowly but surely, yeah, kind of taking it day by day. And so far, everything, not everything, but most of the testing has gone well as far as getting these guys back into camp. So we'll see. Obviously, it's easy to say that now, but if ever there was a contact sport, football is a contact sport. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the testing progresses here as they get back into real football practice over the course of these next few weeks.
Well, and when we talk about what it might look like for the 2020 NFL season, yesterday, of course, was the deadline that the NFL and the NFL Players Association set for players to opt out if they don't want to play this season. So what does that look like for the Browns? How did the opt-out shake out for us?
Yeah, so under the agreement between the NFL and the NFLPA, every player had the right to opt out for any reason. And if they opted out, their contract just froze and gets held over till the next season. For the Browns, it was interesting, though. The Browns had 5 players opt out. That was the second most of any NFL team behind only the New England Patriots. 4 of those players who opted out were offensive linemen. They were all backup offensive linemen, though, and probably only 1 or 2 of those guys had a chance to really contribute in a significant way this season. The 5th player was a defensive lineman, Andrew Billings, who was a free agent signing this season. He signed on a 1-year deal, so instead of playing in 2020 for the Browns, he'll play in 2021. He was the most significant of the bunch. He was a guy who was really expected to contribute in a significant way on that defensive line. So they're going to have to find a way to fill that spot and fill the void left by Andrew Billings. But, as individually, the 4 offensive linemen who opted out, I don't think you could point to any of them and say, hey, that's, a significant guy. I don't think any of them were really even going to be in the mix to be a starter. But when you look at it as a whole, to lose 4 offensive linemen and 4 guys who were expected to play guard, right now the Browns only have 2 players listed at guard on their official roster. So they're going to have to either move around guys from another position, which is what I think they'll do, or sign some other guys. So individually might not have been a big deal, but just as a group to lose those 4 guys, considering they all played the same position, it's certainly noteworthy.
Well, and especially, too, when you say they're all offensive linemen, because all I remember people talking about going into the draft throughout the season last season, at the end of the season, is how we needed to beef up our offensive line and really needed to protect those players. So it's comforting, I guess, to hear that these guys weren't really the stars of the show in terms of the Browns roster, but that's very concerning from a casual football fan over here.
Yeah, and that's, it's not even, like I said, I don't think any of these guys were really in the mix to start, but it's that depth you worry about now. If any of the guys who are playing do get injured or do get sick, God forbid, these were kind of going to be the guys who were going to be the next guys up. So now I do, they had some guys like Chris Hubbard who played right tackle last season. I think he'll move over to guard probably. Nick Harris, who they drafted as a center, he also has the ability to play guard. So they have some versatility. It's just a matter of actually moving those guys around. But, this is something you look at the guys who have opted out across the league. It's been a lot of offensive linemen and a lot of defensive linemen, because those are guys who weigh typically more than 300 pounds. They're kind of the more high-risk guys as far as the coronavirus and things of that nature. So it wasn't necessarily unexpected, but as far as just being a team that got kind of hit with a bunch of opt-outs, the Browns happened to be one of those teams.
And you said we had the second most opt-outs in the NFL. You mentioned the New England Patriots. I know a lot of their top players actually, or at least a few of their top players have opted out, and we don't exist in a vacuum. So how do we think this will impact the Browns season just as a whole when we look at maybe other teams' opt-outs?
Yeah, and as far as opt-outs across the league, there weren't that many significant ones. The Patriots were certainly the team where you look at them and think, what's going on there? Why are all these guys opting out? And there were even, people get so paranoid because of the Patriots' success that people are thinking, okay, what's Bill Belichick up to? Like, what's he scheming for as far as clearing cap space and getting these guys on different years of their contracts and things of that nature? But when you look at it on an individual player-by-player basis, it was some guys with pre-existing conditions, some guys whose wives had just given birth or were expecting. There were kind of individual causes for all of these. I think it was just kind of happenstance the way that all these opt-outs occurred for the Patriots and maybe even to a lesser degree for the Browns. So as far as the way it affects the league, it really doesn't look like it's going to in a significant way. Like I said, there haven't been that many high-profile guys who have done it. Dante Hightower, a linebacker for the Patriots, Albert Wilson, a wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. Those were probably the most high-profile guys to do so. And when you look at it from that perspective, those aren't the type of guys that you look at as swinging the way the AFC is going to shake out. So, for the Browns, I don't know how much it changes other than for themselves, just making sure they shore up those depth concerns on the interior of their offensive line.
Anytime we talk about how Bill Belichick is this mastermind, I can't help but just get a pit in my stomach because he used to be ours. He used to be our coach.
Yeah, it's crazy how that was 25 years ago now, but Bill Belichick will certainly always have a place in Cleveland Browns history.
Wow. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. September 10th is kind of a long way away, but it's not that long away. So we will be anxiously awaiting to see what happens. Thanks for joining us today, Ben. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stephanie.
That was our 3 News sports analyst, Ben Axelrod, breaking down for us the Browns opt-outs, 5 players opting out, 4 offensive linemen, breaking that all down for us. If you want to see more from Ben on that, you can go to WKYC.com and our WKYC app. You can also follow him on Twitter at Ben Axelrod. He is a great, great Twitter follow, so I highly recommend it. All right, let's talk more about schools in general. There's a school in Illinois, which is our near neighbor, not too far, just over there on the other side of Indiana, that's doing something interesting that is kind of raising eyebrows for parents. They've decided that not every day is pajama day, and they are banning pajamas from online learning. This is in the Springfield School District in Illinois, and parents aren't necessarily very thrilled about that. One mom told a local news outlet, WCIA, that she made the decision for her kids to be at home, and she doesn't really want the district coming into her home and telling her kids what they can and can't wear in her own house. Other parents, however, were okay with the decision. They said they want to demonstrate respect with the children showing up, looking like they're ready to learn as they would if they actually went to a class. And the school districts are basically saying that this is an extension of what would be the normal dress code policy at the schools, where you're not allowed to wear pajama pants to in-person classes every day, except on those special pajama days during Spirit Week and all of those things. The local education association president said the whole pajama thing is really at the bottom of the priorities over there. But here's what I'm saying. I happen to be wearing a dress today, but I'm doing the news. Normally I'll have a nice shirt on. If I'm not wearing a dress, I'm wearing leggings because I'm working from home. And that's just kind of the world we live in right now. Now, would I wear leggings to the office? No. But I am wearing leggings at home when I'm wearing a nice shirt. That's no surprise to everyone. If you follow me on Instagram, if you follow me on Twitter, you've seen it. So I think the local education association president probably has the right idea here. Probably not at the top of the priority. And when the kid is in the virtual Zoom class, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know if you're wearing pajama pants. That's my take on it. Speaking of back to school, we are in the middle of an Ohio sales tax holiday. That kicked off this morning at midnight, and that extends through Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So we want to know what you are buying on this sales tax holiday. There are lots of things that are discounted right now. You don't have to pay sales or use tax on clothing, $75 or under. You don't have to pay it on school supplies, $20 or under. But those school supplies might look a little bit different this year if you're preparing for an in-home school situation all year long. So we want you to send us photos of what you're stocking up on at a little bit of a discounted price this weekend. You can use our Near Me feature on the WKYC app to do that. You just open up our app. You will be greeted by the app. It will tell you good afternoon. And then in the bottom right corner, you'll see Near Me. So just tap on that. You'll see an option to submit in the top left corner. And then from there, you can upload a photo or a video directly from your phone. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell us your name. Give us your email if you want us to let you know if we choose to use your photo or video, and you'll be on TV today. We're going to be featuring this on What's New at 5 p.m. So send us your photos and your videos for a chance to be on 3 News WKYC. That's it for your early news update from 3 News Now here for Friday, August 7th. I'll be back here at 3 p.m. with your top headlines from WKYC.com and the WKYC app, as well as the new numbers as we get them in from the Ohio Department of Health related to COVID-19. Everyone enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I will see you back here in just a little bit. I'm Stephanie Haney.